So at 6:04 p.m., I will call into order the Board of Finance on March 7th. We are as unusually meeting in Contoy's auditorium because the recount is still being cleaned up downstairs. So welcome everyone, and we'll try to make this space work. And let's get into it. So the first item on the agenda is the agenda. I'd welcome a motion to accept it.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Paul and President Tracy. Discussion of the agenda, amendments. Is there a way we can get that screen so I can see? Oh,
I can see.
okay. Yeah, sorry. Great. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Councilor Hightower, I can see that you're with us.
Recording in progress.
We cannot hear your vote there. Are you with us? Councilor Hightower, looks like you are muted on your end. If you are hearing us and are present, if you could say something, that'd be great.
Yep. Hearing,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. And you were an aye vote for the adoption of the agenda?
Sorry, your camera and sound just came on, so I just haven't heard anything until now.
Got it. Okay. So we are about to record we are voting on the agenda right now, and a motion has been made and seconded to adopt the agenda. I'm looking for your vote.
Aye.
Aye, excellent. So we have an adopted agenda. We'll move now to the public forum. And is there any member of the public here in person that would like to address the Board of Finance for the public forum? I'm not seeing any takers here in the room, and it does not. If any of the attendees are looking to be recognized, maybe you could raise your hand and we could try to promote you. We only have a couple. It does not look like they wish to be recognized, so I'm going to close the public forum and move to the consent agenda, and I would welcome a motion regarding the consent agenda. President Tracy?
We'll move the consent agenda taking the actions indicated.
Seconded by Councilor Jang. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and we've adopted the consent agenda. Now we're going to move to 4.01, which is the first of 3 airport items. A request to execute a rental car concession, rental vehicle concession at the airport with ELRAC LLC, and a number of other companies, and I will let Nick summarize this and get into it. So welcome Team Airport. Why don't you give, this is an item with some background, maybe a quick summary for the public and the board.
Absolutely, Mayor. So this is with our 3 parent companies, our 3 parent rental car companies, LRAC, which is Enterprise National in Alamo, Avis Budget, a single contract, and the Hertz and Dollar Group, also separate contracts on those 2. We've been working on this for quite some time. This is going to be a contract that goes back to July 1st of 2021. Similar to the airline, similar to many of our industries at the airport, the car rental companies, which is normally a $25 million gross revenue entity in itself, at just the Burlington International Airport, saw significant reductions in their revenues as well. We held off on an RFP and worked directly with these 3 parent incumbent rental car companies until the pandemic let up a little bit. They saw some increase in their revenues, and then we republished a open public RFP for a non-exclusive rental car concessionaire at the airport. Our three parent company rental car companies bid on the process, and we were able to work directly with them to negotiate this particular contract that you see before you. There's a few things that are highlighted in here. One, of course, is the revenue increase. We are seeing them come back online, back to 2019 revenue numbers. In fact, this year, 7 months into the year, we're just over 106% of our revenues, which is about $1.9 million in airport revenue, meaning they've gross revenue for the rental car companies this year is around $19 million. This contract will again be backdated to July 1st, even though our minimum annual guarantees are reduced to $500,000 per company, so a total of $1.5 million for the MAGs. We're already above that. In fact, our MAG, our revenue is $1.9 million, like I mentioned, meaning our MAG for next year will be 85% of their gross revenues, which we're already on track to immediately go back to our 2019 numbers. Our second increase in this particular contract is our CFC numbers, which were at $4 per day. This is what a renter would pay. This now is increased to $6 per day and only for 1 year. This also gave access to these three companies for our new quick turnaround facility, car wash, fueling bays, at the airport, which was a $6 million project that is now 100% online, and this is a 5-year contract with these companies. Very excited to move this forward. This is a large part of our airport revenue budget.
Great, thank you for that, Nick. The floor is open for questions or a motion. Councilor Paul and then Councilor Jang.
I would make the motion, although if there's a question, I'm happy to wait.
A second.
Oh, okay. So I would make a motion to take the action as recommended in board docs.
Excellent, second by Councilor Jang. Any discussion? Great. We will go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Marie, Shelby, and Nick for your work on this. I know this has been a big lift getting this done. Let's go now to 4.02, a request to execute a contract with Engineers Construction, Inc., ECI, for maintenance yard repairs and the approval of a budget-neutral amendment to the fiscal year 22 budget in the amount of $109,950,000. Nick, you want to tee this one up as well?
This is much more straightforward than the previous one. So this is not only a contract for the maintenance yard or the paved areas of our maintenance building, but also the associated budget amendment as well. This is exactly what's written in the contract, which is repaving of that maintenance yard, as we call it, parking facility for our large vehicles, and some repairs associated with infrastructure that is right there as well.
Great, thank you. Questions or a motion from the board? President Tracy.
Move to take the recommended action in board docs.
Great, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Jang. Discussion of item 4.02. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Sorry. I don't believe there are any opposed. The motion carries unanimously, and 4.02 is adopted. We will move now to 4.03, a request to execute a contract for the maintenance garage roof replacement with Valencourt Property Management, and to approve a budget-neutral amendment. Back to you, Nick.
Same building as we previously discussed. This is, again, our maintenance facility, which houses all of our fleet at the airport. Today, we do see leaks coming through the roof, which not only disturbs some of the chemicals that we use for our runway. So we need to preserve that, preserve our equipment, and preserve the multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment we have in this particular garage. That's similar item as before, repair the roof and the associated budget amendment in this item.
Great, thank you, Nick. Are there questions on this item? Are we ready for motion? Councilor Jang?
Yes, a quick question, and it is specific to, a lot of sunroof are being developed for parking garages now, and the airport also has like ground parking, and was just wondering if it's a part of your strategic planning, you're looking into those or no?
For sustainability projects,
Exactly,
solar,
yeah.
et cetera. It is. We're working on a comprehensive plan right now. We signed approximately $170,000 contract with VHB to look at those sustainable efforts and to look at all of our roofs across the entire airport, whether it's solar or other sustainable efforts. We're also looking at funding those projects inside of the new infrastructure bill that was just passed specific to airports. This will be one of the buildings that we look at as part of that contract. We're just simply replacing this roof right now, but we'll be able to look forward to sustainable projects in the future, including this roof.
Wonderful. Thank you. I would like to make the motion as indicated on board doc.
Thank you, Councilor Jang. Is there a second? Second by President Tracy. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and 4.03 is recommended. Thank you for all of that. And we will now move to, we have two more items. 4.04 is the lease of vendor space for stand-up paddleboarding and kayak rentals at Oak Ledge Park. And I think Cindy is joining us remotely to shepherd this one. Welcome, Cindy. Do you want to say a couple words about this?
I'm going to defer over to Alec Keating, who's overseeing that contract.
Great. Welcome, Alec.
Hello. It's a same person that we've had doing it the last few years at Oak Ledge. It's a big hit and a nice little money maker for the city, but very popular with everybody that visits Oak Ledge.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have questions for the team, or are we ready for a motion? President Tracy.
I'll make the motion as indicated in board docs.
Great, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Paul. Discussion? Go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you both.
Great. Thank you very much.
That brings us to the last item of the night, 5.01. Authorization to submit community development block grant, substantial amendment for changes to the COVID funding allocation and the 2019 action plan. This is a CDBG item. And I think Katie is the lead on this and is with us remotely. Katie, can you give us a quick summary of this?
Sure. So we're asking for approval to be able to submit our substantial amendment to the 2019 CDBG action plan. That's essentially the action plan where
Katie, we just lost the sound somehow. Can you try again? We are not hearing you. What's that? Okay. There could be some kind of CCTV technical issue. Yeah, we are not We are not currently hearing you, sorry. Can we, Counselor Hightower, can you say something to see if it's?
Yes, Katie's
Oh.
quiet for me as well.
Okay, we can hear you here, so that's good. So this is surprising. Katie, maybe do you want to try logging out and logging back in? Great. So while she's attempting to do that, I have been briefed on this item. If there are questions from the board, I might be able to, let's see, Katie's back. Can you try again? Okay.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, apologies for that and for the delay. We are moving so quickly through the agenda. But thank you for your patience. So essentially what we are asking for this evening is authorization to submit a substantial amendment to our 2019 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan. We're asking for this approval in order to be able to reallocate some of our COVID funding. So just based on planning with the Housing and Urban Development HUD, we integrated these funding sources into our 2019 action plan. And essentially the authorization to submit this substantial amendment will allow us to move some of the funding that we have previously set aside for other programs that are no longer needed at this time to be able to make 2 awards in the amounts of $80,000 and $65,000 to Sarah Holbrook and Vermont Adult Learning, respectively. So happy to answer any specific questions on that, but in summary, it's essentially allowing us to go from what was a very general plan where we submitted back in November of 2020. We have more kind of specific uses right now, and it's allowing us to make the changes to our action plan to be able to make those awards to those partners.
Thank you for that, Katie. Thank you for that, Katie. The floor is open to the board for questions or a motion. And this is, just a reminder, this is a decision, this is not for recommendation, this is the Board of Finance will decide this. Councilor Jang.
Yeah, I would like to make the motion as indicated on board doc.
Great, thank you very much. Seconded by President Tracy. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and that completes our agenda. And thank you, Katie. And with that, if without objection, we are adjourned as a Board of Finance at 6:22 p.m. And I hand the semi-virtual gavel over to you, Councilor Tracy, if you want to say anything about the Zoom feed.
Thanks, yeah, appreciate it. So we'll use this same Zoom link for the regular city council meeting, but we won't get started until around 7. If any members of the public are interested in speaking, we will have a hybrid public forum where folks will be able to comment both in person and virtually. And so if you are interested in commenting virtually, remotely, you should sign up by going to burlingtonvt.gov/citycouncil/public forum. That's burlingtonvt.gov/citycouncil/public forum. If you're in the room and interested in speaking, there's a table where you can sign up, but don't sign up twice. So sign up depending on where you are, either remotely or virtually, given the sign-up methods I just described. Again, we'll be back at 7, so you can stay on this. If folks do need to be back on, you can, or if folks who are on now, you can just turn off your cameras and mute and stay on this for a little while, or leave and come back. But we will use this same Zoom starting at 7. Thanks, everyone. first item on the agenda is the agenda. Actually, we got to do the pledge first. All right, the next item on the agenda is the agenda. Councilor Stromberg.
Yes, I move to amend, adopt the agenda as follows. Add to the consent agenda item 4.27, communications COS Riddell regarding short-term rental ordinance with the motion to waive the reading, accept the communication, and place it on file.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor McGee. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor of adopting our agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have our agenda this evening, which brings us to technically to item number 2, which is the public forum, though we are still quite early for that public forum. So we'll skip over that and go into item number 3, which is climate emergency reports. Does anyone have a climate emergency report to offer this evening? Okay, not seeing any, so I will move past that and then move down to the committee report section of our agenda. Item number 6, committee reports. Are there any committee chairs wishing to offer a report this evening? Councilor Shannon.
This is not, well, just to report on the ad hoc committee for redistricting, which I do not chair. We do not have a chair, but I have been trying to get a meeting together. I sent out a doodle poll, and unfortunately, we didn't find a date that everyone could attend, and the closest one was a date that I am not sure the assessor could attend. So we're going to be trying to find a date probably 2 weeks out. There really is no way for this committee to meet the deadlines in the resolution, but, and I forget, President Tracy, if you had, you may have updated this body about this at the last meeting, but to remind people if you did, the plan at this point is to convene the group to establish a chair and to come up with a meeting schedule and then come back to the council with what the committee sees as a workable schedule as soon as we can all get together and meet. And unfortunately, that date has not yet been found, but we're still working on it.
Great, thank you for that report. Councilor Shannon. Councilor Paul.
So the, just out of curiosity, Councilor Shannon, I don't think you meant redistricting.
Reappraisal. Thank you. I did not mean redistricting.
One of those R words.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
doing something again.
Yes, yes. Thanks. So the Public Safety Committee meeting is meeting tomorrow evening. We're doing it remotely, 5:30. We have gone through, there are 9 sections in the CNA report. We have gone through the first one, which was by far the longest. And we are going to be covering sections 2 and 3. The hope, if we can keep to our timeline, our hope is to have the entire report completed, because we're meeting once a week every Tuesday, to have it finished by the end of March, so that a report can be submitted to the council just in time for the end of the council year. So that's our goal, and wish us luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paul. Any other committee chairs wishing to offer a report this evening? Councilor Hanson.
Thanks. The Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee is meeting next Monday, 14th at 6:30 p.m. And we're going to be taking a look at the North Winooski Avenue corridor study and plans moving forward on reconfiguring that corridor. Hopefully we'll be coming out of that meeting to the full council to consider how to move forward at our full council meeting on the 21st. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Hanson. Any other committee chairs? Okay, not seeing any. So we will move to item number 7, which is City Council General Affairs. Any councilor wishing to speak to that this evening? Okay, don't see anyone, so I will move past that item to the City Council President updates. I don't have any updates for us this evening, so I will move on to the final item, which on this would the final update item, which is the mayor's update on general affairs. Mayor Weinberger.
Thank you, President Tracy. I just wanted to, I think it's appropriate today, given events of the day, to voice our appreciation to Sarah Montgomery and the whole elections team that carried out a successful election and then recount earlier today, and did so under really challenging circumstances, with Sarah working in just her second full election, and with Amy Bovey out on leave. And this year they even had to deal with unprecedented situation with a polling location having to be closed for a few minutes as a result of a bank robbery. It was quite a day, but we got through it, and we got through the recount. I'm very appreciative to the team for all the hard work. That's what I got for tonight, Councilor President Tracy.
Thank you, Mayor Weinberger. Appreciate that. So that concludes the committee reports and updates section of the meeting. All that is left are deliberative items on our meeting, and our custom or our practice is not to make decisions on any of those deliberative items prior to the public forum. We only have a couple folks signed up for the public forum this evening, so I'm going to ask that we call a recess for Councilor Shannon.
Isn't one of our items a presentation, that we could start the presentation part of that and not take any action until after the public forum?
Sure, I'm open to that.
That'd be good.
Yeah, if you'd like to move into the presentation section, are you speaking for item 5.01? I'll do that. We have an item regarding redistricting that is just a presentation. So why don't we move into that, and then we'll, because it's just getting information, and we can accept the communication and place it on file when we're in deliberative session. So we have with us Director of City Planning, Megan Tuttle, and City Attorney Dan Richardson. So thank you for preparing this and for sharing the information with us tonight.
I'm happy to do it. So I'll let Director Tuttle start off. There's a memorandum that's attached to this, and I will fill in with support from some of the legal issues. But I think the first step in this process is going to be largely planning, and that will be your bailiwick.
Okay, sounds good. So as you know, earlier this year, you received a report from the ad hoc committee that was established to help solicit input on the redistricting priorities for the upcoming redistricting process for the council. That report was presented to you in January, and we included an item on the agenda at your first meeting in February to come back and discuss with you the council's perspective on those priorities for the redistricting map-making process as a result of that input that you received. At the meeting on February 7th, the council had discussed a couple of other things related to redistricting at the state level earlier in the meeting, but asked us to look at the schedule for actually moving a redistricting plan to the voters for the November 2022 election, and to come back to you with an update on what a schedule could look like for actually giving us that feedback and moving forward with considering mapping alternatives. So the memo outlined here for you gives you a generalized schedule. Because our clerk's office has been busy administering the election from last week, we don't have exact deadlines yet for charter changes, which is what a ballot or a redistricting plan is. But we are anticipating that the deadline for when the council would need to make a decision about a map to put in front of the voters would happen at your July meeting. So assuming that the council wants to make sure that The same configuration of counselors has an opportunity to weigh in on the criteria to use for making those maps, as the configuration of council who will review them is. We propose that we could start that process with you in April and work to get your feedback in April, and then work through map-making alternatives through July. So that's essentially what the memo outlines for you, is a schedule for that. And an alternative that if this council wishes, we could come at a future meeting and talk to you currently about what map-making priorities you may have.
Great. And Attorney Richardson?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on top of that. Part of what the schedule looks like is we have a November ballot goal for redistricting. So we backfill from that. So you're probably talking about the July date for the deadline when this council or the council has to vote to approve the redistricting plan to be able to warn enough meetings to ensure that it's ready for the November ballot is the goal that we would put to the council if it still wants to do the November redistricting, which, once that passes, then would go to the legislature. So you're probably talking about an implementation date of March 2024 for the new wards or district configurations, because it would be highly unusual for the legislature to pass it. Well, even if the legislature did pass it in the early months of 2023, we wouldn't be able to muster a March town meeting day with that new configuration. So we really are talking about 2024. So, certainly it's something that you want to, the November date is something I would urge the council to keep to as much as possible, because already then we would be sort of 4 years into the cycle before it would actually be implemented based on these numbers. The only other thing that I would suggest, and I think, this is what Director Tuttle was getting at in some of her comments, is, if there's high-level feedback, and we've given you, some outlines of things that you could ask about. If there's any sort of high-level feedback that this council would want to give, we are certainly receptive to it and to help in the map-making process, which is really the next step. And the legal considerations, and I'm happy to discuss those, are really about drawing equal districts, equal wards, so that, one person, one vote continues. And that's what's forcing this issue, is that growth in certain areas have put the districts and wards out of proportion with each other beyond what's constitutionally acceptable. So, and part of this is, are you looking for big changes, small changes? Is the district issue something that you feel we should be looking into presenting options to avoid having a sort of district ward configuration? Are there certain wards that should be redrawn in more substantial ways than simply moving a boundary street or two? Those are the kind of questions that drive redistricting in this case. And so we would certainly look to have your feedback to give you different options. And, I think at the end of the day, the problem is we can draw, 100 different maps, but they won't suffice and help you unless those 100 maps, or even one map, addresses the issues that are your priorities as a council.
Thank you very much. All right, so are there any questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Carpenter.
This is really just a comment, and I've discussed it with Attorney Richardson and said it publicly, that I hope this year when we vote this charter change on the map itself, that we consider a charter change that would allow the city itself to determine the timeline. One of our problems is because we're going to the legislature, we're stuck on their timeline. And it's my understanding we could change the charter to do that. So there's nothing formal, I'm just stating that publicly for transparency, and I hope because then 10 years from now, which I won't be here, but that it'll be a little bit easier to manage the process.
Sure. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Councilor Barlow.
Thank you, President Tracy. I had a question about how you envision the process sort of playing out. It seems like there's some fundamental decision points before we draw any maps, which would be how many counselors and how many, districts, I guess, not in the formal district sense that we are using now, but electoral districts for the council. So, I mean, do you envision us working that out prior to making any maps to present to us?
Yeah, I think that the process that was outlined in the resolution that you passed last summer actually laid out a really good process for this, which is that you asked for this ad hoc committee to collect feedback on priorities for the redistricting process, and that report has been delivered to you. The next step that it envisioned was that you as a body would give us that high-level direction on exactly those factors. How many counselors do you want? Would you like ward and district configurations or not? There were a couple of other details in there as well. So we would really be looking for the next step to be for you all to provide us with that feedback, so that we can then have our map maker develop, I think, a couple of maps that could show you some alternatives, because I think ultimately some of those criteria may create opportunities for multiple paths forward. But then the process would be to work from there to help you refine multiple maps into a map that you would ultimately approve for the voters to consider.
Thank you. And I think it's really important that we get those fundamentals like nailed down before we make any maps. One of the things I recall from the last time we did this is we had different configurations with different numbers of counselor and different size districts. And that, I think, created a lot of controversy. And so if we could nail down those specifics first, I think it would be good. And I don't know how we would go about doing that in this. We can't do that in this council maybe, or we could have a work session and sort through some of that so that we could get some consensus on it. And I would, I'd be, based on the timeline and what we have in front of us for, I think that our next meeting, obviously that probably won't work then, but if we wanted to collect input from this council, and then again when we convene with the new council in April, it'd be good for us to sort of get consensus about that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Councilor Hanson.
Yeah, I agree with Councilor Barlow. I think we should try to decide as a body about these high-level priorities first, using the feedback from the committee, and make those decisions before we start considering different maps. Thanks.
Thank you. Don't have anyone else in the queue. Councilor Jay.
I'm going to stand up a little bit. So my question is specific to the committee that was created. What will be their role moving forward? Or are they dismissed? That's one. Two, I have seen several maps already, and I don't know any details about who is going to be the map maker and what is the role of the city council to decide we want this one person. And lastly, what is the plan to go back to the NPAs and at least outline the plan you outlined to us just today? Thank you.
You're welcome. Or I can answer them. Sorry, not you're welcome. So the role of the ad hoc committee, we had supported them through the early phase of this to help collect input on what those high-level priorities for your consideration should be. So we were working with them within the context of what had been outlined in the council's resolution. So at this point, as far as our work has been with them, we have not been further engaging with that committee. You're correct that a number of maps have been generated. There are both things that came out of the state level redistricting process that some folks were marking up and offering to you as suggestions. And there are also some groups of residents that have started working together to propose ideas to you as well. Ultimately, the maps that at a staff level that we will bring forward to you for consideration will be done by the senior policy and data analyst from within the planning department. And those maps will be created under your guidance in terms of the direction that you give us about how you would like to see those maps prepared. As far as any other kind of engagement with the NPAs or other members of the community, The map-making process is something that we support at a technical level, but is a council process. So any kind of community engagement that you would like to see around that process will happen at your direction.
Great. I don't have anyone else. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Not seeing any, so we'll come back to this item and just make the motion and accept the communication and all of that in just a second. We're still a little early for public forum, but we do have a couple of signups remotely, so I'll let us transition into that. If folks are interested in signing up for the public forum, the way to do so if you're participating remotely is to go to burlingtonvt.gov/citycouncil/public-forum, and you just fill out that form and submit it, and that'll feed into a sheet from which we'll call the names. If you're participating in the room and would like to speak, you just fill out the forms that's over in the corner here, and then hand them to the city clerk, and then we'll be able to get them here. We do prioritize folks who are in person, and specifically Burlington residents in person, then Burlington residents participating remotely, then non-Burlington residents participating in person, and then non-Burlington residents participating remotely. It does not look like we have any in-person commenters this evening, so we will go to the folks who are participating remotely. First, in terms of the comments this evening, I'll just ask folks to stick to the issues and refrain from personal attacks or profanity. I would also ask that folks stick to the time limits. We'll be giving you 2 minutes this evening to share what you will with the council. So please respect that. At the end of the 2 minutes, I will let you know that your time is up, and I will continue to do that until you stop talking so that we can move on to the next speaker. And if for some reason the people aren't on right now when we're calling them, I'll try again at 7:30 just to make sure. And again, if you're interested in commenting remotely, you may sign up by going to burlingtonvt.gov/citycouncil/public-forum. So if we could just please have the timer up on the screen. Thank you for that. And I believe I need to be given hosting responsibilities just so I can unmute folks. Excellent, I see that now. So the first speaker is Abbott Stark. And Abbott, I'm not able to.
I'm Abbott Stark.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize that it was going to be in person, so I was kind of nearby and I came, so.
Oh, okay, awesome, well, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Spoken several times, and some counselors have been incredibly responsive, and I really appreciate that throughout the short-term rental dialogue. It's been really incredible to engage, and the level of engagement from some counselors who aren't even my technical representative here in Burlington, but a fellow Burlingtonian has been really incredible. I really agreed with the STR ordinance as it passed last week when it was originally drafted and proposed, but since then I've actually heard from a lot of people, and I'd ask that you reconsider and allow for a broader definition for low-income housing and replacement of short-term rentals. So since it passed, I've heard from people that in this body that the low-income housing trade, it excludes people who are low income and don't have the luxury of qualifying for a Section 8 voucher. And I say that one host posed the question, my current tenants would qualify for Section 8 vouchers if they applied. Does that mean I have to consider replacing them with an official Section 8 voucher holder to continue my STR? And that's in terms of the Section 8 waiting list. I don't know how many people are familiar with Burlington Housing Authority and their operations. Their website specifies a 5-year waiting list to qualify for an STR voucher. So in the scope of the conversations that we've had with the Sears Lane residents who are now unhoused, all of the hotel voucher recipients who are soon going to be out of that situation, none of those people would qualify for this STR trade provision that we've allowed. However, if we expanded that and allowed for a low-income or IZ definition of low-income housing recipients, they would then qualify. So please consider that.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Amy Magyar. Amy, I've located you and have enabled your microphone.
Thank you so much. If you look down the length of my block in the Five Sisters, you'll see evidence of a neighborhood that's morphed over the years. The big storefront windows on a residential apartment that used to be a grocery. The addition on my neighbor's house with scars in the bricks that show where the wide door of a horse stable became a narrow entrance for an acupuncturist office, and then finally a sunroom wall. A few blocks up, there's a schoolhouse that became both rentals, office rentals, as well as condos. That house was turned into a triplex that easily was big enough to hold 10 renters who could do with a little less space if it meant a rent they could afford as they built the wealth they needed to move up in the world. I don't know the history of all these places, but I do know one thing. All of them have grown and changed and flexed to meet the needs of the people who owned them or lived in them or both. They didn't do it overnight. They added a wall, they took down a wall, they put an apartment in the classifieds, they took it off. Back then, builders couldn't simply raise a block and put up the kind of hotel chain that sits a 5-minute walk away from my home now. They could only move by increments, but over time, those increments built this beautiful neighborhood. The reason I share that is because I want us to remind ourselves about the ability for both the owners or renters of a building to breathe and flex, and ultimately look at what was considered in the last meeting and open up an opportunity to add an addendum to the regulation that allows for flexibility, allows for growth, allows for breathing room. Non-owner occupied on units like duplexes and ADUs. Not everybody will do that, will use them as short-term rentals for their entire time. Please also consider what Councilor Carpenter recommended. I find it hard to swallow that her suggestions on short-term were ignored in the last meeting, as she may be the most experienced on the council when it comes to the housing environment.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Burlington.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Julie Marks. If folks are interested in speaking on this in the public forum this evening, you may do so by signing up at Burlington, and you're participating remotely, you may do so by signing up at burlingtonvt.gov/citycouncil/public forum. And we will be prioritizing Burlington residents. Having gotten through the folks who have indicated affirmatively that they are Burlington residents, we'll now shift to a non-Burlington resident, and Julie Marks. So Julie, I'm going to enable your mic. You should be enabled now, Julie.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, great, thanks. I'm just calling in tonight to echo the words of Abbott Stark and Amy Magyar that you just heard as your Burlington residents, and encourage the mayor to veto the short-term rental ordinance that was passed previously by the council. It is very obvious that given the fact that this ordinance wouldn't even be enforceable or enforced for at least a year from now, that there's plenty of time to come up with a more comprehensive and long-term solution that better balances the economic needs with the community needs. I certainly agree as a housing provider myself for 8 long-term tenants in Burlington that the opportunity to expand the IZ definition would be much more attractive and realistic than only providing a Section 8 housing. And so I would also encourage the council to reconsider Councilor Carpenter's proposal, which offers a much more realistic opportunity for homeowners to both achieve first-time home ownership, but also allows larger housing providers the opportunity to diversify their businesses in ways that benefit both their long-term tenants and their own family situation. So again, just here to encourage a veto of this ordinance that was passed and encourage the council to really challenge yourself to find a better resolution that addresses the long-term needs of this community. So thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker is going to be Deb Ward Lyons. And Deb, I've located you and have now enabled your mic.
I found it. Before I talk again about short-term rentals, I want to say I totally respect your service to Burlington as city councilors. I could never find the time that you put in for endless meetings and prep work. I honestly don't understand how you do it, but thank you for serving. Now, regarding STRs, I'm wondering how long do I have to work my 3 jobs to make ends meet? I'm grateful that at 65 years old, I can work. My short-term rental allows me to stay in place in the home I've lived in for 40 years and to pay my taxes, which went up 25% this year. I just work harder and try to be smarter, which leads me to continue to voice support for the small mom and pop property owners who use their STRs to pay their bill. I agree there need to be restrictions on STRs, but the ordinance passed last time goes too far. Yes, short-term rentals are low-hanging fruit for you to pick on. Low-hanging and cheap fruit. Which fruit is more expensive? UVM. My great-grandfather graduated from UVM in 1890, as did 3 of my children. I love this college town, but UVM doesn't pay my or any taxes. Last summer, UVM admitted almost 14,000 students, and its incoming class was the largest in the university's history, which led to 240 people on a wait list for housing. UVM has gotten too big for their britches in terms of housing. Please come up with a plan that requires UVM to create more housing for its student population or to cut back on its acceptance level. That will make a difference. Personally, I hope you have a chance to return to consideration of Sarah Carpenter's amendment. In saying that, I totally support a veto of the ordinance by the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Do not have any other in-person signups, and we have gotten through all the folks who signed up to participate remotely. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public forum, and we will move back to our agenda and pick up where we left off, which is item number 4, the consent agenda. Councilor Stromberg, may I please have a motion on the consent agenda? Sorry.
I move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
I have a motion from Councilor Stromberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Jang. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We'll go first. We have a couple other meeting structures, but let's take care of getting that communication from the report just accepted and placed on file. Item 5.01. Having already heard the report and had a chance to ask questions, may I please have a motion on the recommended action in board docs? Councilor Paul.
I'd make a motion to waive the reading, accept the communication, and place it on file.
I have a motion from Councilor Paul. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor McGee. Any further discussion? Okay, not seeing any, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? That too carries unanimously. I will now recess the Burlington City Council meeting. We have 2 other meeting structures to get to this evening. And first go to the Local Control Commission meeting. I'll call that meeting to order at 7:37 p.m. First item on the agenda is the agenda. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, President Tracy. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Shannon. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Commissioner Tracy. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated.
Thank you. We have a motion on the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner McGee. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That too carries unanimously. Brings us into our deliberative agenda for this evening with item 3.01. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you. I would move that we approve the 2021-2022 first and third class liquor license applications for Masala Alachi Indian Restaurant and Bar with all standard conditions.
Okay, there's a motion seconded by Commissioner Shannon. Any discussion? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. 3.02, Commissioner Mason.
Thank you. I would move that we approve the 2021-2022 first and third class liquor license application for the Venetian Soda Lounge, 266 Pine Street, Unit 122, with all standard conditions.
Moved by Mason, seconded by Councilor Shannon. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. 3.03, Commissioner Mason.
I would move that we approve the 2022-2023 first and third class liquor license application for Mayday, 258 North Nooski Avenue with the following conditions. All city permits need to be closed out, contingent on fire marshal approval with all standard conditions.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shannon. Any further discussion? Okay, don't see any, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. 3.04, Commissioner Mason.
I would move the approval of the 2022-2023 outside consumption permit application for Mayday, 258 North Nooski Avenue.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shannon. Any discussion? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Our final item for the evening, 3.05. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you. I would move the approval of the 2022-2023 first and third class liquor license application for the Grade J, 135 Pearl Street with the following conditions. All city permits need to be closed out, contingent upon fire marshal approval with all standard conditions.
Thank you, Commissioner Mason. Seconded by Commissioner Shannon. Any discussion? Okay, not seeing any, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. And motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Mason, seconded by Commissioner McGee. Any discussion? Okay, don't see any. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned at 7:41. So that brings us to our last meeting structure of the evening, which is the Board of Civil Authority. I will convene that. There's still a couple of items on that consent agenda to take care of, but I'll turn that over to Mayor Weinberger to run that meeting.
Great, thank you, President Tracy. I call into order the Board of Civil Authority at 7:40 p.m. and welcome a motion regarding the agenda. Councilor Paul.
Second.
Second by Councilor Mason. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to the consent agenda. President Tracy.
Move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions as indicated.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor McGee. Discussion of the consent agenda. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and that concludes our agenda. And without objection, we're adjourned at 7:41 p.m. I hand it back to you, President Tracy.
Yep, so that too concludes the City Council meeting for this evening for having completed all of the reports earlier in our meeting, so a motion to adjourn is in order.
So
Moved by Councilor Stromberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor McGee. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:42. We'll see you in 2 weeks, folks, on the 21st.